You wanted the best. You've got the best podcast. The hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Hi, folks. It's Voss here from thechrisvossshow.com. The chrisvossshow.com. Somehow we lost the opera singer. Let's give her another shot at that. .com. There you go. Sometimes it's a little earlier for her in the morning, and we have to call her in and say, hey, we need you to do the show, eh? And she's like, I'm still having my coffee, eh? And I don't know why I'm making her sound like she's Canadian, because maybe she's not. What do you know? You may never know, but that's the beauty of the Chris Voss Show. Welcome to the show, my family and friends. We certainly appreciate you guys coming by. Thanks for tuning in. As always, refer the show to your family, friends, and relatives, because we couldn't do it without you. The show grows and doubles and triples about every year now. It's pretty insane at the growth level it's at, but it's because of you people, you folks out there who help refer the show to your family, friends, and relatives. So to those of you who've done it, thank you very much. To those who have not and been delaying it and procrastinating it, please do call up a friend or reach out to them and say, you need to be smarter, because I've seen you lately, and you need to subscribe to the Chris Voss Show. No, don't say it that way. That's not an appropriate way to do it. Don't do that. This is why I'm not a coach, people, to help people to refer podcasting to other people. As always, we enlighten your world, we brighten your mind, we make you more intelligent. We bring on the smartest people for 15 years, the billionaires, the astronauts, the White House advisors, the Pulitzer Prize winners, the authors, all these brilliant minds, and then little old me. We come on the show and bring it to you 3 to 4 times a weekday, 15 to 20 times a week. There's so much of a volume of knowledge that if you're not listening to the show every day, you're just missing out. And you should have FOMO, fear of missing out, 24/7. We had an amazing young lady on the show today, and she is Alara Sage. She helps activate women in their power, magnetism, and creative genius, and how to live ecstatically. I had to look at that word twice because I flunked second grade. Everyone knows that as the callback show of the joke. She is the founder and creator of Creator Consciousness, a Trinity teaching of embodiment, manifestation, and creative genius. It's an in-depth yet simple, precise system to masterfully create your life. That's what we're all after, aren't we? That's what the Chris Voss Show is about. We're trying to masterfully better create our lives. Some of you are trying to destroy it, but that's your problem. See your psychiatrist. Alara is an intuitively gifted healer who coaches provocatively and soulfully. She has over 15 years of experience helping others reignite and transform their lives. She works with leaders, visionaries, and creatives who desire to master their reality and create a luminous life. Welcome to the show, Alara. How are you?
I'm fantastic. I've just been enjoying listening to you and the intro and all of it. And I'm just
Thank
sitting here
you.
laughing.
Well, if you are, then hopefully the audience is as well. Because if I'm not interested, they're like, yeah, whatever, guy. But they're more interested in the guests these days because they've had about enough of me. So, Alara, give us your .coms. Where can people find you on the interwebs? Learn more about you.
Absolutely. alarasage.com is my website, and Alara Sage on Facebook, on Instagram, on YouTube, on LinkedIn. Alara Sage.
There you go. So I've given kind of a tease out. Give us, in your words, a 30,000 overview of who you are and what you do.
So I'm really about helping people to create an ecstatic life, a life that is fulfilling, that lights us up. We are here, we have so much potential as humans, and yet we are really living a very minute portion of that. And so through my own personal experience of learning energetics, learning the mind, learning the heart, learning how to be present and bring my desires into my physical reality, I help people to do the same and really transform their life. Living lit is really what I desire in my life, and I inspire others and help others to do the same.
There you go. Why is it important to, live your life for, something extraordinary and all that good stuff? I mean, isn't just being dark and depressive and kind of sad all the time? Doesn't that sound like fun?
It doesn't to me, but hey, whatever floats your boat, right?
Whatever floats your boat. So, tell us about your journey. How did you get to be in this business as a coach? How did you have these epiphanies that kind of took you down this line of life?
Yeah, I've been doing this all my life. And when I was younger, people would say to me, "I don't know how you always get what you want, you always create what you want." And I didn't even really understand what they were saying. I was like, "Okay," because I didn't see that it was so easy for me.
Hmm.
And at the age of 19, I actually meant to go to university and got rerouted by my higher mind, my higher self that rerouted me to go travel the world. And the first place I went was Fiji. And I found this book that said, it was called visualizing or something
Hmm.
like that. Creative visualization, that's what it's called. And I read this book and she was talking about visualizing what you desire and creating it. And it hit me that that's what I've been doing my entire life. I had this wonderful way of immersing myself in what I wanted and just putting
Wow.
myself into that reality all day long. My imagination was very, very powerful.
Hmm.
And so it happened for me always. I always just created what I desired. And so this continued on but then I kind of went down this rabbit hole of making some choices that were not really in alignment with my heart. I made
Hmm.
choices out of fear. I made choices out of people telling me, "Oh, do this, do that." And I ended up in a relationship with a very wonderful person who I severely love now and forever, my ex-husband,
Hmm.
but it took me down a spiral of numbing myself and not listening to what really lit me up, listening to what he wanted, what his perceptions were, and really into this space of, okay, I'm going to do what I feel is logical, is right. He's a finance guy, right? Very in the mind, very logical way of perceiving his reality,
Yeah.
you know. And it came to in 2012, 2013, I don't know, I always fit the year always changes somewhere around
Hmm.
that time. I was working on horses. I was a
Hmm.
physical therapist for horses. I did body work on horses, on athletes, elite beings. And I was driving my car and I was going to work on these horses. And my higher self said, "Ohm 3 times." And at the time, I didn't practice ohming. I knew what it was, but I
Uh-huh.
didn't do it myself. And I was like, "Okay, sure." And so I took a nice deep breath. Om. And I did that 3 times. At the end of the 3rd time, an energy shot through my body, went out my head, and I went into full body orgasm. Now, Chris,
Wow.
I had never had a full body orgasm.
Now, had you? I mean, I have to ask this because had you had an orgasm before, or was this the first full body orgasm? And if so,
First
we
full
need to
body.
know what's the difference between an orgasm and a full body. I'm inquiring minds want to know because this
Absolutely.
sounds
So,
great.
had I been orgasmic? Yeah.
Okay.
Orgasm in sex to me had been rather challenging. I had to really concentrate, you know?
Mm.
Everything had to be just so, and then I would hit it. And it was,
Huh.
what's called localized or genitalia orgasm, where it's just in the sexual organs. So
Hmm.
full body, the feeling that you have in your genitals goes through your entire body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's where you're shaking and palpitating and
Oh my
cold
God.
sweats and all that stuff.
It's just pure bliss.
Okay.
So I pulled the car over.
Right now, people are writing this down. We should do this sometime.
Yes, and,
There you go.
and it lasted for I don't know how long. It seemed to last forever, but I don't know
Wow.
how long it lasted, and
Yeah.
when it ended, when the visceral physical sensations ended, I was on cloud 9. I was in such a state of bliss. And long story short, what had happened to me is I had a spontaneous Kundalini awakening. Some people may have
Oh.
heard of Kundalini. It's our inner energy, it's our inner fire, it's inner healing. I had never heard of it. I didn't
Hmm.
even know what happened to me in the moment.
Hmm.
But what it showed me was what was possible and what I was currently living at.
Yeah. I see why you left your husband. That's a joke. But, no, it's interesting. Some people have this awakening, and it's interesting how connected or unconnected sometimes women are to themselves. I've sometimes people can't connect their body to their mind to a release that's highly pleasurable, and so you go through this experience, and it is what happens from there. Do you say to yourself, I'm going a different path with my life?
Yep. I mean, actually, what happened was I had 6 months of chaos
Hmm.
where what happens when the Kundalini awakens is it unearths all of the suppressed emotion. I had, considered myself emotionally stable,
Hmm.
and I was actually just emotionally suppressed.
Ah.
And I was very numb.
Hmm. Yeah, and you this was your breakout, your feeling and stuff. I've seen some people cry when they have that moment. Like they'll weep. You're like, are you okay? Are you hurt? Are you okay? And they'll cry a lot. Um, it's kind of it's a moment where they cross the threshold and they're like, I didn't know I could ever feel that way. And it's really something. And so you feel like this is your breakthrough, that you help other women go through, where they really try and feel fulfilled in themselves, and they try and find their femininity, or what their core version of themselves are. I know you have a line here in your bio that you don't you're not like promoting feminism per se. Are we promoting femininity, its core and its beauty? That's my question.
Yeah, absolutely. The feminine hasn't really been on our planet for a very long time in her power. And so when women are in their power, they're embodied in their womb, they're embodied in their pussy, and they are extravagant, they are luminous,
Hmm.
and they are very, very powerful while simultaneously being very tender. Wisdom is held in the body, wisdom is not in our mind. And we have created a society that is largely up in our heads.
Mm,
You know, knowledge, yeah, is knowledge power? Yes and no. Because you can have a lot of knowledge and you can do nothing with it. You can have a
yeah.
lot of knowledge and not be in the present moment. And
Hmm.
in the present moment is where that wisdom is. And wisdom surpasses what you have programmed your mind, both positively and negatively. Right? Our minds are like computers, they get programmed with past experiences, they get programmed with what we feed it.
Hmm.
And wisdom surpasses all of that. It is
Hmm.
innate intelligence, and that exists in our body. And women are the bearers of that wisdom, the feminine, I should say, because
Hmm.
masculine men have feminine energy as well. We all hold feminine and masculine energies.
Hmm.
So we all hold the ability for wisdom, but we have to really learn how to be fully present in our bodies to activate that wisdom.
Hmm. And I think women in the feminine, they have an experience with their body that's very different than men. We're normally very logical and
Yes.
reasoning, and that's the beauty of, but the masculine and the feminine is their complements to each other. And although I know some guys that are in their feminine just a little too much, but that's their problem. I'm just being
Or vice
funny, folks.
versa.
Or vice versa. Yeah, I've seen that in the dating field lately, where you're just like, hey, I'm not going to arm wrestle you on the first date. Like, calm down. And you might want to, back off the testosterone roids, the TRT. I'm just kidding, folks. No, I'm not actually. But so you went through years of living through deep shame, guilt, and trauma. It was tell us about some of this. Was trauma leading? We found over the show that trauma is one of those things that people experience that changes their brain and kind of can affect their whole pathways in life.
Yeah, absolutely. I was sexually molested as a child by my grandfather. So it was a very close space, and it just distorted me around what is safe and what is the masculine and what is love.
Hmm.
What is love? And where does my no go in with all of this? Because apparently it has no power. My no has no power. And I'm just
Hmm.
supposed to just allow things that feel really wrong to my body, right? And
Hmm.
how that roller coasted into, well, my relationship that I spoke of, right? And how I
Yeah.
was living really without my power and without that. What's really what I desire, and my hell yes, and my fuck yes, and what lights me up. And that shame really holds us down, really suppresses us, and basically tells us that who we innately are is not okay.
Hmm. Yeah, and maybe the world is judging. I think women experience the world judging them more, or they think that judges them more. Their values based upon social value, as opposed to men. We have to build things and do things and accomplish things. But the feminine is a beautiful thing when it's in its I don't know what you call it, its peak. So it sounds like a horrible word. The
Power.
feminine, when it's in its power, there you go. Because it brings so much beauty to the world. And do you find that in today's world, people or women shun their feminine more? I mean, a lot. A lot of them kind of have to with what they're doing and chasing masculine business and stuff. They have to operate their masculine. And I know some women, it's hard for them to get back in their feminine or find a safe place for a feminine.
Yeah, our society has been highly masculinized, not right or wrong, good or bad. I mean, I love the masculine energy. All for all of it, right? We need all of it. Just like you said, it balances itself.
Hmm.
And however, right, our society has been like really masculine driven. And so women have leaned into their masculine in order to succeed. And myself included, I was highly masculinized, and
Hmm.
it's like, how do we reconnect to that so we can bring forth that wisdom into everything, into business, into society, into politics, because our world desperately needs this wisdom.
Hmm. Yeah, that's there needs to be a balance of contribution. Like I've always been this businessman that I can create companies, and I've created 27 plus 30 plus different companies over the years. And my businesses are always dead inside when you go inside the offices,
Mm.
according to the women, because the walls are white. There's, I don't bring flowers or crap into my office. I mean, if the employees do it, I mean, they can have fun on their desk. But when you go into my offices, they're pretty much statically dead. When but I'll go into like restaurants or other people's offices and I'll see the feminine at work where, there's beauty and artwork and so much stuff. And I'm just like, God, I wish I could think that way.
Mm.
It's that's the beauty of the feminine spirit. And it brings so much beauty in this world. Otherwise it'd just be like, I don't know, we'd all be IBM men wearing black suits and black ties, same color, which is what we kind of were in the 50s. So, what are some ways that you help women break through to have that magnetism, that creative genius and power to live with that power and ecstatically, as you put it? How do you help women transcend that?
I absolutely help women to reconnect to their bodies and that wisdom, that
Hmm.
intuition that women are known for, right? A woman's gut instinct, reconnect to that and learn how to trust it and learn how to follow it. Because a lot of times people they confuse emotions with intuition. And
Oh.
intuition is not emotional. And so people follow their emotions and they're like, see, my intuition led me astray. They're not the same thing. And so I help women to really clearly define, what is my intuition? How do
Hmm.
I follow that? And at the same time, apply my mind. How do I apply both the feminine and the masculine to create my reality? And that starts with really being fully present in the body. So I have very clear and precise techniques like breathing and expression and movement to be in the body.
Hmm. Yeah, women are way more connected to themselves and their body than we are. Like I don't, I've seen all the lotion women are, they're always taking care of their skin and their bodies and what they eat, and they put a whole lot more work into it than we do as men. I just wake up in the morning and I'm naturally this beautiful, and so George Clooney and Brad Pitt call me for tips, but a lot of women they're really more about how they feel about their bodies and everything. Me, like if I wake up in the morning and I'm bleeding out a orifice or something, and I'm just like, whatever, just keep moving. Women are more about, if I'm missing a limb, I'm just like, it's just an arm, it's a flesh wound. So I just keep on moving. But women, they're more about feeling good in their body and their spirit and their emotions, and just living in that way, which is the thing that makes them a great compliment to us. What you help people with manifestation or creation in the lives that they want to live? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so manifestation is truly about, like what I spoke about when I was a little girl. It's about, what are you desiring to create? And our imagination is very, very powerful. So in creator consciousness, we have three creator centers: our sacral center, which is right below our belly button, our heart, and
Hmm.
our pineal gland, our third eye. And these centers are what create our reality. And so when I was that little girl, what I would do without knowing it is I would just imagine myself in whatever I desired. And what happens when we do that is our body literally lights up because our mind doesn't know the difference between illusion, imagination, and reality. When you are really immersed in imagination, you are feeling, you're using your sensories to feel the experience, and your mind lights up the same way as if you were physically experiencing it. So
Mhm.
when we are in our imagination, our body is lighting up in these emotions and this sensory input. And what that does is it creates a vibration. And that vibration is what creates our reality. So I'm teaching people how to tap into that version of themselves. Like, so for instance, if you're trying to create a career, what does it feel like when you're in that career? And when you put yourself there and you light your body up, it's always going to feel good. And
Mhm.
those good feelings are very, very magnetizing. This has been proven in heart math, which is scientific proving of like the power of the electromagnetic field of the heart, and particularly of those good feelings, those good vibrations. So when we use our imagination and place ourselves there and really spend the time to create the feelings in our bodies, we start to vibrationally align with that version of ourselves, and the
Mhm.
opportunities and our life starts to shift.
Mhm. It makes all the difference in the world. Liz is calling in on the show. So great releasing what needs to go. I think that may have been on some of what we were
Mm.
talking earlier, but yeah, making those changes to move to the next level. When you're working with women in today's environment, what's the number one problem that you think they have? Is it trying to get them to get back into their feminine when they want to, do the feminine properties, be with their family at home, et cetera, et cetera?
No, it's definitely up in the mind. This is
Mm.
just people in general. And
Mhm.
I completely agree with you, Chris, that yes, women are more aware of their bodies. That doesn't mean that they're embodied.
Mm.
Being aware of your
Ah.
body and giving yourself lotion and self-care is not embodiment.
Mhm.
Embodiment is fully present with your awareness in your
Ah.
body. It means slowing the mind, reducing the constant blah, blah, blah that is always going on. And this is very powerful because our minds are extremely powerful. And yet, most humans just have this scattered brain, and they're
Mhm.
just scattering their energy all over their reality because they're thinking about this, and then they're thinking about this, and then they're over here, and they're worrying, and they're worrying, and they're stressed, and they're anxious. And so what are they creating? They're creating stress and anxiety. So
Yeah.
I really focus on learning how to get out of the mind. Let the mind happen, but
Mhm.
how do we get into the bodies? And then trust. Self
Mm.
trust is huge, because we have not been speaking about this in our society, about trusting our intuition, right? We've
Mhm.
given so much power to science. Science is so important. We need science. And what happened to our intuition? What happened to our wisdom? What happened to our innate knowing that, again, goes beyond what we can prove, which is so important because it
Yeah.
exists. Much
Yeah.
more exists than what we could just prove.
Yeah, learning to trust ourselves. The thing you're talking about, we've had like Olympic coaches on the show and other people that have talked about how the mind, when you envision and manifest things and you put forth the how application of feelings to what you want to do, the mind can't discern between reality and just the fact that
Imagination.
you're trying to make this up. And so if you don't do that, you're going to default, of course, like you said, the things where you doubt yourself and you've got that overthinking going on and that anxiety and that worry. But when you play things in your head, like people in sports will do that, like we said, the Olympians, they'll pre-play being at the event in their head. Okay, here's my warm up, here's what I'm going to do, here's how I'm going to feel about this, here's how I'm going to process this, here's me doing my swimming. And that way when they show up on the stage of their life, as it were, they're prepared, and their mind already goes, okay, we've been through this, we know how to do it. This is old hat. And the approach is different, changing your perceptions. That's what it seems to be a lot of people have trouble dealing with. They don't realize that how you perceive things and how you deal with that information is the difference between light and dark and positive and negative. I mean, one person can go to a party and see people, having a bad time, and it's a boring party, another person go to a party and see people having a great time, and it's a great party. So it's just kind of a choice of how you want to approach your life. But I like what you're talking about, because like I say, a lot of people use this putting themselves into the mindset of, where do I really want to be and how do I want to feel about it, as opposed to, just kind of stuck playing, you're kind of playing the tennis game of reacting to what's coming at you instead of being proactive.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the thing about like self-trust and doubt continues in our life. We
Hmm.
continue to doubt ourselves. And I work with a lot of leaders and visionaries, and yes, they're creating beautiful things. That doesn't mean that they lack doubt, right? Or
Hmm.
sometimes they lack that anchoring into their trust and into their intuition. So it's always a matter of, in my opinion, distilling and dissolving more into our most powerful, most authentic version of ourselves.
Mm. There you go. Now you have something called, that's here in your notes, Shakti. What is Shakti? Am I
Shakti.
Shakti? I'm not pronouncing.
Yes.
This is why I'm asking the question. This is what we do on the show. We learn.
So the Kundalini that I said shot through my body, it's Kundalini Shakti. And so this is tantric teaching. I was not, I didn't take tantric. Everything I've been taught has been taught through what's called my higher self, my higher mind. And so Shakti, Kundalini Shakti is that energy, the creative life force energy that all humans have, regardless of sexual identity. And ultimately, it is taught that it is a process for that Shakti to travel all the way to your crown, which is what happened to me on that day. And that's the stage of enlightenment. And it is, again, it's a journey, it's a healing process. But Shakti is creative life force energy.
Oh.
So I have a great relationship with my Shakti, and I help women to connect to that creative life force energy, which is, for one, very, very creative. If you want to be
Mhm.
a visionary, if you want to be a leader and you want to increase your creative output, then connecting to that creative life force energy is imperative, and learning how to work with it, learning, what it feels like, and learning its ebbs and flows and how it moves through your body, as well as it's extremely magnetic.
Mm. I mean, these are important things for women to go through, because I mean, sometimes they fold into themselves and what they do, being mothers, and I mean, that's a busy job, 24/7. And I think a lot of them talk about losing themselves because they get so much into, doing everything for everyone else, which is the beauty of motherhood. And if it wasn't for them, we'd all be screwed. In fact, most of us wouldn't be here. But without them, the species dies. But and so they get lost sometimes. I think, at least that's what I hear from women. They get lost serving others and trying to be there. And so I think it's important that people like yourself help them kind of realign or reactualize, or get back into, taking care of themselves, because as we talk about on the show a lot, you can't help other people unless you help yourself first, really.
Absolutely. And
Hmm.
it's for men too. I mean, I
Hmm.
work with women, but, men need to connect to their feminine. Men need to connect to their emotions. Men need to connect to their Shakti. This is all within all of us. And
Hmm.
the more that men learn how to connect to that energy, not lean into it and become it,
Yeah.
not be highly feminine. I'm not talking about being highly feminine, but connecting to that version and that part of themselves, then they enact that beauty that you were speaking of as well earlier, that creative side of themselves,
Hmm.
and their own, again, innate power. And then they get to actualize that, because the men are the strength, they're the action that actualizes the power.
Hmm. Yeah. One of the things that I've found, I mean, I've dated for 35 years, something like that, and been seeing all my life. The one thing I found is that I have to provide a masculine frame, an alpha masculine frame, to give a woman the trust to be in her feminine. Because if she doesn't have that and I can't provide that, or I act in my feminine, and she's going to have to act in her masculine. I grew up watching two grandmothers. I've talked about this before on Facebook. I don't think we talked about much in the show, but when I was growing up as 10, I was growing up with two grandmothers, and I had one who was just the angel of femininity, and I didn't understand what that was at the time, but she was loving, kind. She was that doting grandma who would, make you anything, and she was always there for you. She, when you hurt yourself, fell down, she'd hug you. And then I had a very alpha masculine grandfather that she was married to, and she was just though she was, I used to call her my second mother. She was just this wonderful being of light, and she would teach me piano, and she was just always there. I don't think there was ever an ugly moment that came out of her. And then on the other side, I had my other grandmother who was totally intermasculine. I didn't understand what that was at the time, but she was mean, vindictive, manipulative, um, every sort of evil you could possibly imagine. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it either. I mean, she was just evil and manipulative. And I couldn't figure out what the difference was. And I could see how passive her husband was. And he was like her second husband. And she'd been through trauma. I mean, there's a lot of this that goes back to childhood trauma. And she'd been in a lot of situations. She lost her first husband where she'd had to be intermasculine. But I couldn't figure out why these two women were so different. Like, why is this woman so loving and this woman is so freaking hateful? And why is that? And that's when I started to square very, very early on. One had a very alpha masculine husband, and that she could operate in her feminine and feel safe, and another didn't, and she couldn't feel safe. And it got very ugly with her and how she would behave and do things. In fact, we had to kind of cut her out of her life. But I can understand what her pathway was, and as I got to know what her child was compared to my other grandmother, but seeing that dichotomy of a difference between it made me really start looking at or trying to understand what the difference was between feminine and masculine, and how if a woman feels that she's in a place where she can live in her feminine, she doesn't have to live in her masculine, that can be really fulfilling for her.
Absolutely. And it's all within, so without, right? Because again, we
Mhm.
have these energies within. And so
Mhm.
you're able to see that. And I feel like you're able to also hold a clear masculine vibration for women because you have an understanding of the feminine per your grandmother.
Mhm.
And so for instance, when women don't have a strong masculine energy within if it's weak, if it's distorted, then they will create that distortion outside of themselves in men. And
Mhm.
that could be a weak masculine, that could be an overbearing masculine.
Mhm.
And then they don't feel like they can really be in their feminine, and vice versa. Men will do the same. If they don't have a clear feminine energy within, they will create a toxic feminine without. And then they
Yeah.
won't feel safe to be in their masculine. And so we create the distortions that we hold within our own inner feminine and inner masculine outside of ourselves in relationships, ultimately, so we can see that. And
Mhm.
ultimately, we can have awareness and be like, oh, look what I'm doing. Look what I'm creating. Let me shift that. However, most people don't have that level of awareness and they think it's that person. But actually,
Mhm.
we're the ones that are creating that version of that person in our life to have that reflection. Everything is a reflection.
Yeah. And in fact, a lot of the overbearing masculine that I've seen, I'm going to put masculine in quotes there, is actually a man operating in his feminine. Guys who use violence or control and different things like that, that's emotional based. That's not masculinity. But sometimes it's deemed as such. Like people go, oh, he's being, toxic masculinity or whatever the hell it is. um, which I think is a misnomer, because if you really study those people, they're operating in their feminine, they're making their decisions based on emotion. And so it's not a real masculine man. At least that's my
It's not
opinion.
really a feminine either, because that would
Yeah.
suggest that feminine is it's distorted in and of itself.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
distorted, maybe masculine and feminine. I think you're right.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that's a good clarification,
Yeah.
because they're trying to mix the two, and it's just
Yeah.
becoming a toxic stew. So that makes more sense.
Yeah.
It's basically a man acting insecure, but
Yes.
I don't find that masculine at all in any way, shape, or form. To me, there's a masculine alpha frame
Yes.
that provides protection and
Yes.
security and gives that envelope, that provider protection, sort of security. And when a woman has that, I mean, she'll curl up in a ball and she'll purr and experience what you do, and you give her ability to run and stuff, and that makes all the difference in the world. And of course, you make her happy, but she has to feel that way, because if she doesn't feel like you're the guy who can take anybody down that comes through the door, and you're protecting her, watching out for her, and then she feels safe, she's not going to be able to operate in her feminine. And so having that balance is really good. But I know a lot of women are single nowadays more than ever. There's been a rise of people running families with themselves. In fact, it's just growing evidently to 2030 where a lot of women will be single more than ever before. And so I think it's hard for them because, they have to be masculine during the day. They have to be sometimes they're playing the dad and the mom at the same time. And so they have to play both the feminine and the masculine. Does that sound like a good assessment?
Absolutely. And it's not ideal to play both. I truly believe that we are beings that work well in a balanced and harmonious
Yeah.
relationship, like you're speaking to. And we can do both because we have both. But it's the ability to be able to have both clearly understood and defined and
Hmm.
working in your being and in your body to be able to move, to know when you need to be in your masculine, great. And then move into your feminine, like not get stuck in one or the other or have distortions or rejections towards one or the other. And that's where our society isn't really, where we tend to lean to one or the other and
Hmm.
not be able to fluidly flow between, actually it's all three of them because the inner child as well, it's a trinity.
Mm, there you go. Well, this has been really insightful. Final thoughts as we go out. Give us your tease out and how people can onboard with you on your website.
Absolutely. People can reach out to me on my website. And, honestly, I love connection. So if people just want to reach out and say hello and connect to me, I adore connection. I adore intimacy. I adore knowing people and learning people and just creating connection and network.
And you also have a podcast too. Let's get a
I
plug in for that.
do. Yes,
Yeah.
the ecstatic woman. It is for inspiring and activating women in their power, the magnetism, and their bliss. So it's 2 shows a week.
The ecstatic woman. Hey, let me ask you this. I want to fall back a little bit. You they have something on your website called the one-to-one container. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so that's where, I'm working one on one with people. And this
Hmm.
is the most profound transformation because I can really tap into people's energy very, very clearly. And, it's precise. It's very, very precise work where we go straight to what is the issue right now? What is holding
Hmm.
that person back from truly creating their reality? And we start to energetically shift it clearly and concisely. And so the one-on-one is my delightful playground. It's where I just adore because I love the intimacy of the container. These people become my friends. They become so much more than just clients to me, but also we change their life in very powerful and transformational ways.
Awesome sauce. There you go. And you've got a lot of different offerings on your website. You've got some free resources there about prosperity portals, rewired mastermind groups, rewired for genius course, nervous system healing bundle, realize your genius. That's what I need to do because I'm an idiot. Wise woman womband program. What's a womband?
Woman,
I'm gonna.
womb,
There you
and
go. Woman.
their womb.
There you
Yes.
go. I've heard of that. If it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be here. So there
Right.
you go. Yeah, I love my mom. She's the greatest woman in my life because
Hmm.
if she didn't, I wouldn't be here because she put up with me. In fact, I think I was 10 months of my childhood. I was a miracle baby, so it took 3 months for them to
Hmm.
have me. 10 months of birth, and I was 10.5 when I came out. And they're like, that kid's going to
Oh
be a
my
football player.
God.
Yeah. Yeah. My dad hated me for the rest of my life. So thank you
Bless
very
your
much.
mother.
Yeah. Well, moms, I hear about it all the time. They never
Yeah.
let you forget it. But you know, wasn't for you, I'd be on a bikini beach doing, I don't know, Baywatch or something. So there you go. But there was three others that came after me, so I
Mm,
get to share the blame
wasn't
a
just
little bit.
you.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
wasn't just me, but I guess I started the problem, is what it was. So there you go. Alara, thank you very much for coming on the show. Give us your .coms one last time so people can find you on the interwebs.
Absolutely. AlaraSage.com and Alara Sage on all the social media platforms.
There you go. Folks, check it out. Let's see. We got one last comment to get in here. So amazing. Definitely was in here.
Mm.
I'm actually going to have to pull that off the show. Somebody pulled a great comment and then put a spam plug in there. But evidently they thought it was amazing. So there you go. Anyway, guys, thanks for tuning in. Be good to each other. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, YouTube.com/Chris Voss, and be good to each other. Stay safe. We'll see you guys next time.